Dear listeners, today we're going to hear a story about treacherous cheating. There were two vans parked in front of the white five-story new building, and people were moving around. They were two young families moving in. Upsize the work was hard, huge things had to be pulled, so the families had to help each other. During these activities, people got to talking to each other, and then they became friends. That is how it went from there. Later, Piotr and Valentina Dansky had a daughter. That's set to say another month later. Ivan and Zarina Imjakovic had a daughter too. The girls also became close friends over time, going to school and studying in the same class. But time did not stand still. The girls graduated from school, entered different universities, and began to study on their own. Marina Dansky married successfully, and after a while, she had a son who was named Ilya. The families were friends for a quarter of a century, often visiting each other and spending holidays together for the most part. But unfortunately, life is not all joys. There are also sorrows in it. It's for years after Ilya's birth, tragedy struck Ivan. Zarina died of some kind of cancer. Ika, his daughter, was away in the capital at the time, and there was no one to help Ivan. So Piotr and Valentina decided to help. Ivan was simply heartbroken. He could hardly go to work at his construction company, managed to do his job, and then returned home and, no, he did not drink alcohol to cover his grief. He was forbidden to drink alcohol by Piotr. At first, Ivan tried to be arrogant. Piotr, I'm an adult man, and you do not tell me how to live my life. My wife is dead. I need a distraction. There are many other ways to distract yourself from grief. Put that away. Piotr nodded at the bottle of vodka Ivan was holding in his hand. Piotr, just get off me. Give me the bottle. Take it and get off. Piotr took the bottle and poured its contents into the sink. Ivan looked at this with regret but said nothing. For a long 6 months, Ivan was in a constant state of depression and found it difficult to make contact with other people. Piotr and Valentina did everything they could to pull him out of the abyss into which he could slip at any time. The day finally came when Ivan began to see the meaning of life. After all, everything was not over. There was a daughter, a job, a flat. It is possible and necessary to go on living in a bad way. One day, very tired, Piotr returned from the factory where he worked as a turner. He had his usual dinner and then lay down on the sofa. Long rest, he had no time. 10 minutes later, his daughter Marina rushing, out of breath, sweating, in his eyes a serious alarm. What is it? Piotr asked at once. Our Ilyusha, he is seriously ill. Oh my God! Piotr dropped his hands, but only for a moment. Then he remembered and asked, Can I help you with your son? Shall I take him to a doctor? No thanks. There is no need for that. We already had a doctor. He prescribed medicine and Ilyusha will recover. But there is one problem. My husband and I are working and there is no one to leave the boy with. I tried to call my mother, but her phone was out of range. Well, that's when I rushed to you. I thought something had happened to Mom, too. is her phone out of range? Or take PS people aren't? Pyotr reached for his gadget and sent the call. The caller is out of range, the robot replied. What nonsense! Pyotr snorted. Antina had gone to the shop, then called me and told me she had met a friend and wanted to hang out in the next yard. What the hell am I supposed to do? Brina thought about it. Daddy, why don't you sit with Ilyusha? Oh, I can't either. I'm sorry. I'm a lab operator and no one will give me an extra day off. Listen, let's go to Ivan. He's working in shifts and tomorrow he's off. Exactly. Marina exclaimed. Why didn't I think of that at once? They went up to the next floor where Ivan lived and were about to ring the bell, but they didn't have to. The door had slid open for some reason. Very strange, Pyotr said and went in first. Marina followed him in. They were both taken aback by what they saw. Ivan and Valentina were hugging and kissing each other passionately. They did not even react to the intruders, they simply could not hear them. It was all happening in the hallway. I see. Marina whispered quietly to Pyotr. Pyotr in turn said loudly, I don't understand what the heck is going on here. Ivan and Valentina winced. Valentina jerked back a little. Ivan shoved his hands in his trousers pockets and stared at Pyotr dumbfoundedly. What the heck is going on here? Pyotr repeated his question more calmly. Neither Ivan nor Valentina could answer clearly and Pyotr turned and left. Marina hurried after him. Papa, wait, she said. Pyotr did not react. Stop, Daddy. Pyotr opened the door, entered his flat, sat down on a chair in the kitchen. His daughter sat down beside him. Hold on, Daddy, she said quietly. 5 years of marriage. Pyotr sighed. And it's all gone to waste. Yes, that's not what I expected from your mother. Marina nodded. Both she and her father held on tightly, though it wasn't easy. Pyotr was both angry and wildly depressed, but he didn't show it to anyone, especially not his daughter, whom he did not want to upset further. Marina, in turn, felt only anger. The anger that one feels after finding out that an outwardly decent person turned out to be a traitor. Well, we need to call my husband. Marina said, I can't leave you alone yet. Oh, come on. Not come on, Dad. And she dialed her husband. He understood everything. All right. I'll take tomorrow off then. I've got a decent supervisor, you know. I don't know what to do next. Anyway, we'll figure it out somehow. Thank you, Sergei. Marina looked at her father. She said, That's it, no, I'm definitely staying. And she stayed. Perhaps that is what saved Pyotr from rash actions and saved him from everything bad in general. The next morning, Valentina came running. She began to explain herself. You misunderstand me. Nothing of the kind happened. Nothing of the sort. Pyotr was furious, picking out and kissing in front of me, and my daughter was no big deal. Where were you last night? Marina asked at Ivan's. You obviously didn't want to see me. You're glad you did, Pyotr remarked. You are no longer my mother, Marina said. Sadly, go away from here on all 4 sides. But you must listen to me. Valentina shouted. "Did you hear what your daughter said?" Quietly, calmly asked Pyotr. "Get out of here." Valentine left, humiliated and in no mood. She was, however, not entirely unhappy about what she had done. She did not feel any remorse for her actions, but something was still eating at her. Something inside her still gnawed at her, a desire for revenge. But maybe I shouldn't take revenge, Valentine thought. Maybe I should be merciful. She decided she would try to do just that first, reconcile with the family. But how would she do this? She did not know very well. When Valentino left, Pyotr felt depressed again and his hands shook. "Papa, take the day off," said her daughter. Pyotr didn't argue and took the day off. Anyway, in such a condition, it is more expensive to work at the lathe, and it is embarrassing in front of his colleagues. "Now let's go to our place," Marina said. "It's good for you to live away from your mother." Here too, Pyotr did not argue and they drove off. It would seem that all should be well by now, but Valentina had tracked them down and guessed right away. They had barely crossed the threshold of her daughter's flat when Pyotr's phone rang. "Hello. Pyotr, please forgive me. I am so sorry both to you and to Marina." "I'm sorry, please." Pyotr thought for a moment. Should I forgive her after all? But he immediately dismissed the thought. If his wife had cheated once, she would cheat the second and third time, and so on. And so he replied, "No, dearie, go to hell." Strangely enough, Tina immediately hung up. No, not because she decided to give up. She just realized it's useless to talk on the phone. So she drove to her daughter's house and decided to pick someone up in the morning. It was early autumn. The weather was still warm and Valentina waited all night outside. In the morning, however, neither her daughter nor her husband nor Pyotr came out of the porch. Pyot's physical condition had deteriorated, so Marina and her husband had to take a leave of absence for a while. Atinsi's family, whether Valentina had realized it or not, it was hard to say, but she knew that her plan had failed once again. Then anger boiled up inside her. To hell with peace, she thought. I want revenge. And she began to think of ways to get revenge on her husband and daughter. And for a long time she thought, and then somehow she found out that Ilya had recovered and started kindergarten. And then, in her opinion, she came up with what she thought was a win-win plan. Valentina sat down on the bench outside her daughter's flat as if nothing had happened, and waited for her with her grandson. At last they could be seen in the courtyard. "Granny!" Ilya, a 4-year-old boy, exclaimed happily and put his arms around Valentina. He was still clueless, and his grandmother was his favorite. Valentina pretended to be pleased, then abruptly grabbed Ilya in her arms, ran outside, hailed a taxi, and drove off in an unknown direction. Marina immediately called her father and explained everything. Pyotr immediately jumped up. He was no longer working as a turner. Alas, the betrayal of his wife had left an irreparable mark on his health. He was now a security guard in the same factory, working a day-and-a-half schedule. It was his day off that day. I'm here, Piotr said. Do you have the number of the taxi? Yes, I got it. That from Mayor Brayton's to decall the police. The police arrived quickly, listened to Marina and Piotr, and immediately went in search of the taxi driver. He wasn't hard to find. He explained, yes, there were such passengers, a lady and a child. The lady told me to go to the Central Park, where she paid and got off, taking the child. Then the lady with the baby in her arms got on the bus and went to, I don't know where. Do you remember the number of the bus and the route number? The policeman asked. The taxi driver hesitated. Alas, I do not. I didn't know it was going to be like this. Well, let's leave him, said the cop to his colleagues, and promised Marina, we'll do everything in our power to find your son. Everything in our power to bring the child back to your family. Oh, if Marina knew how long this search would take. It took half a year. Her mother's phone didn't answer, and neither did Ivan. One day Marina went to Ivan's house and rang the bell. Strangely enough, it was opened by someone else entirely. But it makes Ivan Mukovic. This is his flat, said Marina shyly. The girl smiled and explained, he hasn't lived here for a long time. He sold it to me and my husband and disappeared. So thank you. I'm sorry. So Marina went to the neighbors, and they all also said Ivan disappeared and Valentina disappeared too. And still no word from the police. And then after 6 months of searching, the investigator called and said, your son has been found. And his negligent grandmother too. Where are they? Marina asked with a ringing tone. Dextizer is the prison 70 kilometers away. We are on our way. Marina took her father with her on the road. He was off duty again according to his schedule. It turned out that Valentina had bought a small house in the town and was keeping her grandson there. She was discovered thanks to a sketch that was posted on social networks. An attentive citizen identified her. He also reported her to the police. When Marina, Piotr, and the police arrived at Valentina's house, she flatly refused to let the cops inside. By this time, she forced Ilya into the basement and ordered him to sit quietly. And Ilya became quiet at first. Valentina opened the door as if nothing had happened and let the cops in. I'm sorry, it's just now. Valentina tried to think of an excuse, but no matter how hard she tried, it just kept coming out as nonsense. Where is Ilya? Marina asked her mother in a loud voice. There is a loud banging and a child's crying in the basement. Marina looked angrily at her mother and opened the cellar. She took out a crying Ilya, held him close to her. Hush, my little one. It's all right. I'm with you. Ilya has calmed down. Now go to Grandpa Piotr, and I will now talk to your grandmother. Marina handed her son to his father and looked angrily at his mother again. She said nothing, for the court would say what was necessary. And the court sentenced Valentina to 7 years in prison for kidnapping. But life began to get better. Piotr went back to his flat and did not become a turner again. He continued to work as a security guard, and in his spare time, he took care of Ilya. They sold their old flat, bought a dacha in a remote village, and began to rest there. And Ilya grew up healthy and active and gained strength. Dear listeners, your support is very important to us. If you like our story, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's very motivating for us. We need your feedback to improve our content.